ran an extra 10 minutes with nothing connected. And it just wouldn't stop. It wouldn't stop from Zoom. It wouldn't stop from YouTube. It was painful there.
Oh, I should probably say that we're live somewhere. Okay.
It says it on the top left-hand side.
Oh, here it is. I got it live. It's a few seconds behind, but you know, I'll start posting that out so the people who don't want to be here but want to be here can be here. Okay, I'm posting that now. Yeah, this is not a formally structured meetup here. This one's kind of ad hoc, but I feel we really had to have a meetup during ApacheCon, just because if we were there in New Orleans, we would have had one, which is still hurting me, except for that weather down there. But
yeah, I could deal with the weather for being in New Orleans.
Yeah, we'd be inside anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the humidity, right? That's the problem in New Orleans this time of year.
Yeah, it's pretty bad here in Jersey, and it's raining, so I guess I can't say it's too much better.
That's right.
Okay, I'm just posting the YouTube link out there so the people who want to see us streaming. Okay. So I think first up, I'll do the NiFi 112 stuff that that Pierre put together, just to show that. Then we'll open it up for, you know, questions or comments, and then maybe we could show your cool database demo, John. Paul can run some random craziness that he does.
No, don't make me do things. No, I get stuff. I can always.
But you always have stuff.
Yeah.
We might not want to see it, but you have it.
That's right.
Yeah, you can demo what you're gonna, you know, give a little sneak peek of what you're showing tomorrow at ApacheCon.
No, I can show you the real deal because now I have it like working.
You have it ready? Oh, John had his ready like 1 minute before we started.
Actually, while Tim was showing the slides, I was like, oh, I forgot this. And I went and started fixing it.
Yeah, Pierre asked me for, okay, Tim, show the demo. I'm like, ooh, what demo am I showing? I forgot which thing we were doing. There's too many sessions, man. 7 things in 2 days is too much. I tried to put all the former DataWorks Summit stuff into a small package and do that, but
Paul's not wearing his
missing the
NiFi shirt.
DataWorks Summit, man.
Paul's the odd man out.
Yeah, you know what? Nobody ever gave me a NiFi shirt, so here we are. I'm wearing a white shirt.
Yeah,
Paul,
but you need a tailored NiFi shirt.
Paul, send me your mailing address. I will make sure you get a NiFi t-shirt.
You're too kind. I don't deserve it. I need to get at least John or Tim's level to get a NiFi t-shirt.
I'm sure Joe Wood will give you one, man.
All right.
Oh, there's a question on there. What session is that?
Live case for IIoT.
Yeah.
Yes. Sunil.
Yeah. He's doing a talk with me tomorrow at ApacheCon at 2:55 Eastern time. It's utilizing NiFi MiNiFi for Edge AI IoT at scale. I put all the buzzwords in there. I was going to put containerized Kubernetes blockchain, but I forgot. But that's the Litmus partner stuff. That's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool one.
Yeah, so Litmus automation does direct connects into PLCs, which is pretty neat. And then you could use basically, I think Sunil packaged up as a containerized version of MiNiFi to deploy and essentially pushes the data that way and then up into CDP, which is pretty cool.
Okay, so Andy's busy with real work, like making sure NiFi has security. So, do we on our own?
Fair enough.
So I guess I'll go start off with NiFi 112. If you downloaded 112.0, just recycle that. Don't run it. Don't try to run it. Download 112.1 that just came out now. So I did not get to install it. So maybe you wait till 112.2, but I'm going to test it this week. Maybe what time we start our sessions tomorrow? Maybe I'll try to install and move all my flows over to it before ApacheCon. It always seems to happen at a conference that there's a new release, like right before they're doing demos. And then I move over and found out half the stuff is broken. I'm going to try it because there's a couple of new features in there. This one I think John and Paul will like is being able to empty all the queues.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, me too.
That would save me like a terabyte that's in my local NiFi. There's so much weight in there that I'm like, I'm not going in there. It's too much work. So that's a nice one. And if that's there in the UI, that means it's going to be there in the REST. And then Dan will add it to Python, and it'll be probably in the command line interface. So that'll be real cool. So that is a nice one. Yeah, Andy says he'd rather be here, but he's lying. He'd rather do cool stuff. This one, what people are telling me that this is going to be our next happy place. The scripted transform record. You're going to be able to do some crazy transforms. So sometimes right now, like I have one for the one I showed with Pierre, where the data comes in such a format that you're like, I got to do something with it before I turn into a record. Or it's record-y, but there's, it's arrays or nested or just ugly. The scripted transform, you're supposed to be able to do it on the records, so it's still really fast and still takes advantage of all those records. So this one, I'm hoping to try this out this week and be able to see if we can do some cool stuff here. We'll be able to quickly, this will really answer a lot of ELT issues. You'll take some like ugly XML or logs, really transform them at scale and push them through because the record processors are so fast. This one should be really big. So this is a big one. This one probably affects Paul more than anything else. All the cloudy stuff. Got the Gen 2 stuff in there. It's supposed to work.
I'll test it out.
Yeah, that you're the guy for testing all those, man.
Have we pushed the for Data Hub the AWS S3 integration that doesn't require?
I don't think that went out yet. I think there's supposed to be another release soon now.
Okay.
That's a nice thing with that gets released pretty quick. I remember seeing some notice. I got to look that up in the email. Pierre sent something out before. So there should be some update on that. There's also, I think, Flink GA is going to be on Data Hub like this week, next week. So that should be cool.
Yeah.
Get everything without the work. I like that.
That's right.
This one is pretty interesting. This one, I think, solves a couple of problems that all of us have had with, how do you handle when things come and when they should go the next thing. I think this might clear up some of that things getting out of sync. I got to play around with this one. But this one's supposed to be another one that's pretty cool. So if you want, sometimes you want a big batch of records. Sometimes you can't handle records. And then you do something painful like, do a JSON split on them or something. And that's just bad. So this is a real nice feature too. Snowball. I don't know how many people are pushing a snowball, but that's kind of cool. I'm sure Paul has. No one else but Paul. I'm not sure how many people are doing puts with UPSERT. I like to see UPSERT anywhere. I didn't know Postgres had UPSERT. So that might make for some extra things maybe to add to yours, John. Go, I can UPSERT into Kudu, into Phoenix, into Postgres, then have like sudo CDC to
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working on that. I like obviously Hive and Kudu were the first batch, and I'm gonna do some stuff with HBase, but it has to make sense, the data. Like I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't want to push like RDBMS data to HBase and use Phoenix. Yeah.
except for aggregates.
Then people will do it in real life, and then we're in trouble.
Exactly.
I'm still getting in trouble because there's people who use NiFi to host websites.
No.
I showed that at the NetHope conference because it's for charities. I'm like, they can't run a lot of stuff. I'm like, here, one thing you could do your data stuff and also host a little website. So, no one's complained yet, but Pierre kept looking at me when I told him you could do that. He's like, don't host a web page. It's like REST endpoint good, web page. But I think it's pretty cool because when we did the mobile app, which I could show that, I can accept file uploads. I could get location. I could get phone data without even having a phone app. That's kind of cool. What else we got? List processors. This is kind of cool. This is another one to play with. So we'll see how that goes. Again, some decent features here. This would have helped me about a year ago because I had to try to connect to some of these hacky OAuth providers. Has been a pain.
Oh, wow.
But
this is huge.
Yeah, this is big.
Another Paul one. We'll have to see how it works though. Because see this big note down here? Because I'm hoping it's not like the rules engine where you really have to figure out how you can use it.
I mean, I've been doing OAuth authentication with NiFi to like do the BMQ stuff, and it was like I had to build a cache, right, to like kind of store the token, see if it expired or not, because you need to the renew token. That sounds like.
Yeah, we were doing this with speaking of Apache C takes for one of the hospitals, and it's like these extra nasty steps that no one wants to do. So that's a good step forward. This one really hasn't affected me, but I guess if you've got, doing more searches in NiFi can't hurt. So I'll give that a try. That's certainly got to be helpful. Not as important as those other ones, but anything that makes NiFi a little easier to use, can't complain. This one, I'm curious. I remember people mentioning some issues here. So I'm curious what the difference is with those protocols. So I got to dive into that. I'm curious if does that mean support for non-Avro schemas?
I think it's not. Yeah, I think it's a different CERDA that's non-Avro. So like the Hortonworks schema registry, you can bring your own CERDA.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably what they're talking about.
Yeah, I'd like to see protobuf and maybe JavaScript schemas. That'd be worth XMLs. XSD would be interesting though. That way you could replace your old SOAs, man. Get rid of those old things you're using for integration. Now, of course, new version of Kafka means new version of NiFi processors for them. Again, the API's changed enough. So there's yet another set of Apache Kafka ones. So I know this is going to confuse people because they won't know what version they're on. So hopefully that's not the case. That we don't get, because you used the wrong one, you could have problems. We have any more questions there? Nope. Oh, Bill says shipping delays. People will get stuff. I got to do meetups less frequently so people don't notice. This is interesting. I don't know how many people are still doing SMB, but I guess somebody asked for it. So
Yeah,
that's
someone
cool.
definitely who's probably paying a lot of money asked for that one.
Hey, if you got it, enjoy. Oh, this is not, this one's nice. I definitely want to try some more stateless flows now that they got definition of when you should use it. And the talk today, a lot of people were asking why use NiFi when you can do Kafka Connect. So I got to take a look at, you know, trying some different things for Kafka Connect versus NiFi Stateless, especially if they've done some big work on there. So I'll have to take a look at that. Security, again, why Andy's not here. He's doing more security and fixes. Nice stuff. 300 Jiras. That's pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's definitely not one of those point releases where nothing's going on for no reason. There's stuff going on for some reasons. So I guess I could stop sharing for a minute here.
Yeah, I'll go in and I'll start showing what, you know, what we did today. So, you know, one of the things with NiFi, or one of the, you know, I think one of the benefits of the tool is, or what at least companies want to do when they first institute NiFi, is they want to go, hey, how do I get, you know, data out of an RDBMS, right? And almost provide like a change data capture, CDC, into Hadoop. So we had a talk today at ApacheCon on incremental streaming, essentially doing like fast batch, what we call it. It's not true change data capture. True change data capture goes log level. But for those that have never tried to do this, in order to do the log level stuff, you have to pay. You have to pay handsomely. So Oracle's got Golden Gate. There's also Attunity. There's a company called Debezium. So depending on the company, depends on really how much you're paying. And a lot of times you have to pay basically just to connect to those logs for that data source. So when I was working at American Water, one of the things that we needed to do was get data out of SAP. So I kind of modeled what I did here. Obviously, I don't have an SAP database, and to spin one up is relatively expensive. So we're using Oracle instead, which Oracle is pretty much used in every industry, every enterprise that I've ever come across. You're going to find an Oracle database somewhere where they need to get data out of it. It's pretty big. So just to walk through, I created a generator. So even NiFi in of itself, the cool thing about using the building blocks of NiFi is that, one, I'm just invoking a REST call to this random user API that gives me a username. It gives me other information. And matter of fact, I could probably expand on this a little bit. I think I get an email address, all kinds of stuff. None of it's legitimate. It's all randomly generated. But it also has this thing called the expression language, right? So NiFi expression language allows me to take, you know, different things and store them as attributes within the flow file. So if I want to capture a timestamp when an operation occurs, essentially that's what I'm doing here. I'm calling this timestamp, and that's now, and then to number. So this basically is taking the timestamp of now, and I'm making it into a number, and it's a epoch timestamp. I also wanted to create a key value, right? Because, you know, in a normal database, you have essentially some sort of key, a primary key in which the data, you know, the transactional data will change upon. And then we have a timestamp feature. And then, you know, I also wanted to create some sort of like number that made sense, right? So I have essentially a key, and then I get first name, last name from that API, which I extract out from the JSON. And then I also add the timestamp of the time in which I ingest. And all I'm doing is I'm basically pushing that into an Oracle database. I'm going to show you real quick. This just uses a database connection pooling service, which is a JDBC connector. I'm not going to go into it too much. That's all you're going to see of it, but it's pretty normal, right? If I continue it on, then everyone can hit this up, and I'm keeping this database up for a little bit longer. One thing to point out, use the Java 8 jar, right? So they have many different jar files. NiFi, if you're just doing standalone NiFi, NiFi supports Java 11 right now, but if you're using like prepackaged, usually with other stuff, I think most of the time you're gonna see Java 8 is what's being used, and just a username and password. Now, I have two different pushes here. One of them goes to Kudu. For those that aren't familiar with Apache Kudu, it's very fast read, very fast write database, right? And so Kudu, essentially I can create a table with Impala on Kudu. And to show you what that looks like, if I come to Hue, which is another Apache project, you'll see like, if I show you what this data looks like, this is just a select star, but I can come in here and actually, create a table in Impala, Apache Kudu, and you'll see I have all these key values. The thing that's great about Kudu is if you don't really have to do anything with the data after you're done with it, right? Like if you're serving dashboards or different things, it reads and it writes super fast. It also has UPSERT capability out of the gate. And matter of fact, if I show you what this looks like, all I'm doing is I'm querying the database, which is Oracle 19c I have in AWS. I have a table name that I'm essentially querying, which is the ApacheCon table, right? Because this is the demo we built for ApacheCon. I'm using a record writer so that I get it in JSON. I'm using this max value column. So essentially there's a timestamp in that data. That timestamp is ingest time. I can have more than one max value column if I wanted. And what it does is it basically builds the query against the database to say, go get me data where the timestamp is greater than the last time I've queried the data. The other thing too is that this use Avro logical types, I had to set it to true. If you don't have this set to true, what ends up happening is you get everything as a character string. And so it's a little bit harder to manipulate the data past that. NiFi can still do it, but this makes it much, much easier. So something to consider. This update attribute is just actually setting a schema name, which is a schema.apachecom. I'm using the internal schema registry for NiFi. NiFi has its own schema registry. And then I'm pushing it into Kudu. And you'll see there's UPSERT data that exists right here. And I'm just using a JSON tree reader. And this JSON tree reader is actually using this Avro schema registry that I have up here. So essentially I have the schema set. I can keep the schema going on. I'm sure Paul is going to show you the Hortonworks schema registry at some point, which is an external registry that you can utilize. And you can have schema evolution and a lot of different things with it. Now, before I start it, I'm going to show you the Hive one looks totally different, right? It's a lot more processors, and here's why. Hive itself does support UPSERT, right? Especially Hive Acid. So for those that aren't familiar, Hive has gone through many different changes. You have Hive 1, Hive 2, Hive 3. So Hive 3 allows for full ACID compliance, meaning you could UPSERT, delete, insert, right? Now, NiFi, what it does is, and this is normal in most ETL jobs when you see an enterprise, is that essentially I put it into a staging database. And once I put it in the staging database, I'll then trigger the job to merge the staging table into the base table. And that's exactly what I do here. But one caveat is if you notice that even with the success queue, I have success that routes to this replace text and success that routes to this HDFS. Well, what I want to do is I want to capture all the history as well, right? So I can see how my data is changing when my data is changing. I have this set to pull every minute. And the reason why I do that is that this merge operation takes probably about 10, 15 seconds. So I could back this off if I wanted to. But instead of paying millions of dollars to achieve like real-time CDC, most people expect that the data, if the data is there within an hour, is usually good enough. In some businesses, an SLA of 15 minutes is usually good enough. This will achieve both. And I've done this in production level, merging hundreds of thousands of records against 600, 700 million record base table in usually about 5 minutes, right? So it's easy to achieve the 15-minute. And if you have beyond the 15-minute, then maybe you're a bank. And if you're a bank, then you can afford billions of dollars anyway, right? So, but this is a way to get around that and say, hey, look, I can save you guys, and it actually saved us about $2 million. not going through the CDC tools or going directly with SAP, but going through an open source tool like this to be able to achieve the thing that we want to do.
So they paid you half of that for doing such good work?
Half of a 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 half.
7 gallons of water.
Yes, but but it did land me a job here, Tim. If you look at the configuration, right? So this is a little different. So, you know, this SQL finds a way. One of the things I get asked is, how do I make sure, since I'm doing the reads differently, that I'm not pulling the same key twice, right? And so I fixed it. And I fixed it like an hour before ApacheCon today. As Tim and I were working through the demo, I'm like, shoot, there's 2 of the same key value, right? So you'll see that I went in the queue and checked it out. So what I'm doing is essentially SQL finds a way. I'm merging the data into the base table, but what I'm doing is I'm actually saying, hey, I'm going to select this a row number over partition by the key, order by the ingest time, in descending order, and I'm going to rank them. And then essentially that I'm just pulling where the rank is equal to 1. Right. So essentially, if I have more than one value in that row, I only want to pull the value of that row, and I merge that into the data set. And then if it does, the key doesn't exist already, then I'm just going to go ahead and insert it. So it's pretty easy to do. So that's pretty much it. So let me start this so you guys actually can see what it looks like. I'm going to start the generator. And you're going to see like right away, this starts zooming, right? So kudu, fast read, fast write, look, bytes in, bytes out, right? NiFi for Hive, I have this set for every 60 seconds. So what you're going to see is in about a minute, if I keep hitting refresh, all of a sudden you'll see a flow file come in the queue. Let me go in here because it's going to make a liar out of me. Yep, there it is. Right. So flow file comes in, right? Data gets read. Now, if I come into queue here, you're going to see the kudu table, which we already talked about. But if I go to the actual Hive table, I'm going to show you that this is the historical table first. So remember I said I stored everything off in a historical table. All I'm doing is I'm showing you the key value and the count associated with the key, and I'm putting it in descending order. And as you see, the key value of 306 occurs 6 times, which is showing you that I have more than one version of the history. If I just wanted to do a select star from, and then we'll say, where's the ApacheCon? Let's move this to history, right? So this is what the data looks like, right? You'll see I have a key, I have a first name, I have a last name, their savings, and then the ingest time. All this is all made up, right? Except this ingest time is a real timestamp at the point which it's ingested. But now if I come back to the query history and I take a look at the Hive table that's associated with that history table, I'm just going to do the key and the count star. And I'm going to go ahead, and if you look, see this is in descending order, which means I have the highest value. I only have one version of the truth, right? So this basically is going to mirror my source system database, an Oracle database, but I still store all of the history. And why this is important is I can go through transactional trends that are happening within my database if I want to. But at the same time, if I want to build dashboarding or BI, BW off of the source system table in Hadoop, now I can easily do it with Hive. And we'll do the same thing. Select star from, and then we'll just take the Hive table. And then there you go, right? So 2 different database types, streaming to both of them, both reading off of the same source system table. Also within one NiFi job, I'm able to split it and store the history as one external table in Hive, and then I store the real-time stream as an ACID table or transactional table in Hive as well. So I have both an external table and a transactional table, and that's pretty much it. So I think it's pretty neat. You're going to find that when you get your first job, if you ever decide to get a job as a data engineer, most of the time it's get data out of this database and get it over into this data lake, right? And it's easy to do. That's it. So, Paul, I see you're back.
Yeah,
Open.
sorry that I got pulled in some emergency things.
So Paul's stuff is usually much cooler because there's usually some sort of magic involved with what Paul does.
Oh, okay. You want me to give them a preview of this? All right, sure.
Yeah. Mine's practical, but it's boring.
All right. So give me 1 second to go see my slides, and then you're gonna witness the building of the flow itself, so that you'll be able to see it. So just me look for it, and this is a preview of my talk for tomorrow. If I find, no, that's not it. Do you have the slides, Andy? I don't remember. Yeah, there it is. See, I knew it. Okay, so just kind of a preview of what I'm going to present, but I'm going to show you how the sausage is made, because I'm actually going to train the model today, because I'm going to present that at ApacheCon tomorrow. So, so what I've done. So first of all, I'm going to start by saying, like, obviously I'm a massive nerd. In case you haven't figured this out yet. And one of the things that I like to play Magic the Gathering. I think it's the best game, period. So my friend and I'm going to give you the context, because my friend and I, we play together. I only have one friend now in this COVID age. Like this is like, I have John.
Whoa. I was going to say,
John, that can come to my house, Nico, and Brian. Those are the three guys that I know are reasonable enough not to get infected and are allowed to my house, right? And we play this decks that are, like, I have a deck here, and they're pretty big. They're like, if they're double sleeved, it's like 100 cards. And the problem is, when you not as tall as John is, like, when you try to shuffle these, it's kind of a pain. Like, it keeps falling, and if you don't have a proper ratio of, hey, right, and I forgot that you started to work with Brian, and that's awesome. He's really excited to have you. And we got tired of it, and we decided, like, maybe there's a way that we can, like, create some sort of, like, automated shuffler for those decks, right? And the way that the first step was, well, we need to identify which card is in the deck to be able to, like, classify it. So we have, like, we're thinking of, like, putting this to the edge, so that, like, basically you take a picture of the card, it tells you what it is, and then put it in a specific slot, and then like this you can have a distribution and kind of feed the
Paul always likes to build suspense, or his internet goes out, one of the two. That's what happens when you live in a suburb of Philadelphia. We lost you for a minute there, buddy. So
sorry.
I don't know.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Yep, you're good.
So, where did you lose me?
Right before you went to this page.
Okay, cool. So, Magic the Gathering, invented in 1993 by Richard Garfield. Best game, great trading card game, the first trading card game. Why do we want to identify cards, like, for science? Most of all, it's just for fun. But there's a bunch of examples, and especially with COVID right now, where you put a camera on top of your deck and it will identify your card and help you play with your friends from remote. In my case, I wanted to be able to identify it and make it small enough so it run DH, right, at the edge. So the first thing I tried to do is obviously OCR. I used Tesseract. The problem is when you see with those cards, I don't know if you can see kind of, the actual line of the card that is, like, showing the name of the card that will help me identify it, like this one. It changes, it varies a lot. And so if you look at the type or the card name, you end up with something that makes no sense. Like, you can read almost what's in there, and there's a way to build Tesseract a dictionary for Magic the Gathering. We tried to do this and it just didn't work. Second thing, the second attempt that we had is something that Ian developed in his logo detection, which is transfer learning. So you have a neural net that is trained to recognize specific images, and you're basically going to train it to identify another classification, right? And this is basically what I've done. So, and the way that it's set up is I have, I'm training the model. I have a data hub cluster with NiFi. That's once the model is trained and packaged, I can just push it back to my TPU, right? And the reason I chose a Coral dev board is because I'm running a neural net, so it was easier. So in terms of what it looks like, and this is kind of the preview, and I can kind of show you what it looks like. But currently, I'm still working on working at the dependency, like installing all the dependencies and stuff. But you have and one of the cool things that you're doing is, so I have a card example. So I took a couple of pictures of this card. And the first thing that I'm doing is actually, if you're reading the, I'm going to augment the data, because the problem is that you have very limited amount of data to do like proper neural net. And so you need to augment the data. So I used a data augmentation thing. So if I look at my thing here and I run the prepare the code, what I'm doing is I'm going to, first of all, download a set of names from the interwebs, right? Getting the, so there's a website called Scryfall that will tell me all the cards and all their name and, Oracle ID and etc. From there, I can either, like here in my example, take a copy, or what I'll do is I'll take an image from the internet and start augmenting it. And you start augmenting it, you're going to see having different shapes and forms. And basically, you take one data set and you make it like 3 times more. From there, then you can start training the model. And what we're doing is again transfer learning on the model that we're using is the SSO, this one, the SSD inception, this one, right on, and this is the one coming from Ian. From there, once it's done, I package it to compile it for TPU. And by the way, this is using I built my own image on our, so this is a CLOUDERA machine learning. So I built my own image that supports CUDA, because I started training it on my other computer, and it was just terrible. It just died very quickly. It took like 2 seconds per step, and it just took too long. Here with the GPU, it takes about like 0.4 seconds per step. And so once all of this is done, basically what you get is something like this. And again, like this is kind of the demo that I'm going to show you. Tomorrow, and I'm preparing as we speak. And so what you'll see is, can you see my screen? Okay.
Yeah, we can see it. Thanks.
So you'll see like this identification. So it's like, it gives you a percentage of, whether or not it's the card. And yeah, I see a raised hand. So I don't know how that works. You have a question? How does that work, the raised hand?
Paul, for the raised hand, I have to, let me see who's got a raised hand. Who had a raised hand? Raise it again and I'll allow you to talk. Going once, going twice. All right, they didn't raise again. But hey guys, if you guys want to raise your hand, you guys want to talk or ask a question, don't hesitate to do so. I just have to basically click on it to allow you to talk. So
right.
All right.
And so you see this, and it's not bad, but honestly, it's still, it's training on the image itself. Depending on the quality of the of the image that you're taking is going to be a little bit different. And honestly, I wasn't like super impressed by the performance of it. It was a very interesting experiment, but it wasn't super impressive. Now, what I've done in the end is this, and that's what like the final thing is. I'm basically using ORB features of the pictures that are coming directly from Wizards of the Coast, right? And I'm taking those pictures and I'm doing comparison using a simple KNN, right? And that gives me much better results. The problem that I'm getting is I'm getting a glare issue a little bit, and I can show you like that's what the thing that I'm going to set up tomorrow. But I should have. Can you guys see this screen? Is it big enough or not?
No, it's. I mean, like we can see it in the background, but you gotta zoom in on that thing, man.
All right.
Enhance.
That's why
enhance.
But I have this terminal, and I'm gonna do this, and then run the UI. And here, because you see this more or less, I can do
it's
this
better.
set. I put this. Hopefully, I'll put it in front of it properly. Can you? I didn't put it in front of it properly. There we go. And see it identify which card it is, which is the same one, which is pretty cool. It works pretty well. And you see that the features that are like this one was matched with 26 feature match. And it's much faster and it's much more accurate than the other ones, right? So there you go. There we go. And so that's kind of the work that I've been doing. I'm going to describe it end to end and show you like one of the cool stuff that you get into by using, NiFi on the cloud is that you have all the integration issues taken care of. So, I can, using SDX and all that kind of stuff, I can connect to S3 without any problem. I can push it to anywhere I want. And, really, they give you the ability to, again, like if you were I tried to train this stuff on CPU and it took like literally days, right? Running on the cloud, it's probably going to train in like a couple of hours, and then I can just push it to the edge using the NiFi and etc. And it's very rudimental, but this is kind of the powerful stuff that you can do with the CLOUDERA platform. And that's the preview, guys. Not much more than that.
Pretty awesome. So for those that don't know, Paul is giving, so ApacheCon's going on. For those that don't know, ApacheCon, obviously all the open source projects, things like that. But today kicked off with all the presentations. So Paul is presenting tomorrow. What time tomorrow, Paul?
At 2, I believe.
What time? Tim's got it all.
2 p.m.
2:15 p.m. Eastern time. I got to put it on my wall because there's just so many talks.
So Tim actually submitted 6 talks, and they
no,
all
I
got
submitted 12 talks.
12. Okay.
I thought I'd get 1, maybe 2.
And 6 of them got accepted. So of course we Tim used his spider network and was like, "Hey guys,
keep hope alive, man. I need some help.
Let's join together."
It's too much.
So we showed you a lot of different stuff, up and coming with Apache NiFi, how to use NiFi to do RDBMS ingest, and then almost quasi CDC, we'll call it, right? It's not quite change data capture because it's not pulling from the log level. Paul with his magic to gathering, neural net, trickery, right? His true magic. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, that's a good one.
Raise your hand. We'll allow you to talk. This is an open forum, by the way. Yeah.
In case you haven't seen, I'm drinking a beer, so.
Yeah, so am I. So we don't care. You can ask us anything. related to technology. That is, we'll put bounds around it a little bit, but it doesn't have to be on what we just presented. It could be anything. You know, you have some pretty experienced guys here that willing to definitely share the knowledge. So if you guys have any questions, raise your hand. Very quiet room so far.
Oh, I see something.
Okay. Do you use have you used a CNN, a convolutional neural network, Paul? I'm gonna take that from Paul. Like I have, but
like
not
in real life, in life, or what? Like, yes.
I use CBS instead.
Sorry.
I use CBS. I don't get CNN. I don't have cable.
Yeah, I mean, again, like this is transfer model, transfer learning.
On the project, okay.
On your project, yeah. I don't even. I think so. I think that the COCO model is a CNN, but I'm not entirely sure because I'm doing transfer learning. Like if you haven't figured this out, I'm just reusing what people have been doing. So I believe it is. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, it has to be a CNN. It can be an RNN anyway. So that's
no RNN are time bound. CNN would make sense for pictures or video.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're data engineers here. This guy over here, John, is on his way to being a data scientist.
I don't know if that's true yet. I dabbled,
Not
but
further
I would
than
say
me.
Ian Brooks
that's what I'm
would be
saying.
the guy.
But yeah, so it's a CNN. Yeah, it's a CNN. I got a definition here. This is basically what you remember the work that we've done for transfer learning to do mole identification for cancer patients. The thing that Steve was doing. This is basically
Steve Guy, yeah.
Except I'm tackling more important problem than cancer. I mean identifying Magic the Gathering cards. So. Like I'm solving real problems here. All right. But yeah, it's the same principle. It's a CNN.
Any other questions? Anyone want to talk?
I have.
Otherwise, I'm going to show a weird demo. It's pretty weird, but it is deep learning though.
Well, then you should show it.
Yeah. So tomorrow, me and Ian Brooks, who you mentioned, are going to do a talk at 1:35. We'll come up with these times. Apache Deep Learning 301. So he's going to do some cool data science stuff. There's 2 new projects out there that make life for data engineers a lot better. One is Apache MXNet, which is an Apache library for doing deep learning, and they have a really rich model zoo, which means for us who aren't creating our own models, I can just pick some and they work to some degree, which is good for demos, maybe not for production or for real use cases, but for me showing you a demo, it's not too bad. Another one that came out is DGL. It's a deep Java library. This is by the same MXNet guys. This is a Java library that runs deep learning models. What's nice is they made it very open. So in this flow I'm sharing right now, I'm running 2 PyTorch models, which there's some caveats because they have to make sure that they've been compiled for it and put in a model zoo, or you create your own models and put them somewhere. But I can run PyTorch models now natively in NiFi. I can run TensorFlow, I can run MXNet, and I can run Onyx models. Now, everyone knows the Onyx thing, they had some problems. The PyTorch models, I'm running 2 different PyTorch models in this flow. I have a REST endpoint, and I'm not making fun of you, Paul, but I call my REST endpoint with some JSON that says Paul Vidal likes Magic the Gathering. And then I send a question to it, because if you don't know, BERT does question and answer. It's not excessively accurate, but because it's trained on a very generic model. I don't know if it was, forget which one it uses, if it uses the squad training set to the Wikipedia one. It's, you know, it's not based on our conversations at the meetup, which would be pretty awesome because every other word would be beer and NiFi. But so I have these two custom processors that I dropped into NiFi. Let's see what happened with this latest result. So I passed in, oh, this is an older one. So what this does is it takes, I had a generic question, which was, let me get to the right one. I want to show, see if it went through for that REST call I just made. Yeah, Paul Vidal, and the answer is, my question to the model is, Paul Vidal, oh, can't even spell. Paul Vidal likes what? And it says Magic the Gathering. So that's pretty cool. Obviously, that's a really simple sentence. I should make it longer, have it pull it out. In my general thing, I have, I'm calling a news feed here that returns back just generic news articles. And then I pull out the article and I push it through there. Now, the question I just had before is why? Because that tended to give me results regardless of what the question, what the content was. Again, using pre-trained models and not transfer learning or not custom models, you sometimes get some weird results. What did I get here? Competes the snowflake. I think it's about CLOUDERA, and what do? Competes the snowflake. So you get an idea what it does. And over here, we're using BERT as well, PyTorch model for doing sentiment analysis. Again, I already had a sentiment analysis with Core NLP, but using a deep learning one to see what the difference is. And because it was their models, DGL is so easy to write that I wrote the additional processor in an hour. So I'm like, oh, I could do sentiment too. And this was the raw results. I give people the raw JSON result as well as extra attributes. So it looks at it. It seems more accurate than Core NLP. So it just looked at a sentence and gave me sentiment on it. Again, nothing too innovative, but deployed as Java. The new libraries auto-determine what platform you are on and will download the right C++ precompiled model for you. Obviously, the first time you run this, I would use some automation to run that to make sure it has the model in its cache. Or if you want to pre-download it to a directory, you can point to it. This is still, I'm still kind of working out the some of the problems here because it's very new. They released the new version 0.80 of DGL today, and I tried to put it in today. There was a problem really early this morning I had that two models tried to touch the same engine. So I had to make two copies of the PyTorch engine, but so far it's not too shabby. I mean, to run PyTorch models natively in Java pretty quickly as part of a flow. I also had one I did in Christmas time that did SSD. There's a ton of different pre-built models, so I'm trying to see which other ones make sense. They have pose estimation. What else is there? Semantic. So there's a ton of different models they have out there that it's pretty easy to put them in there. Maybe at some point, we'll see if we could take Paul's model and use the TensorFlow runtime and make it a native NiFi processor. So we'll have a custom processor for Magic the Gathering, which would be pretty cool. Or at least cool to me and Paul. I don't know anybody else. Probably nobody else.
No,
Yeah,
actually, if you
cool.
put that on a Raspberry Pi, man.
Well,
Yeah, we could make it to NiFi, yeah. Or behind me, I got the Xavier running. This guy is sick, man. 256 core GPU plus 8 gig of RAM. And 6 CPU cores. It's really fast.
Yeah. How big is that though?
It's not big, man. Let me show you.
Smaller than the Jetson Nano, or?
It's about the same as the Nano, but a lot more power.
Okay.
So I mean, it's not huge. I mean, it's a little bigger than the Pi, but not drastically.
Not much, no.
I mean, the biggest part is the heatsink fan on it. But other than that, and it's 8 gig of RAM. It runs fast. NiFi works on there, no problem. I'm liking the Xavier. I'm talking about that a little bit in the Deep Learning 301, and I think I did a little bit during the flank session. It's nice. It's a big step up from Nano, or from TX1 or TX2, and it's not too expensive. So I mean, for edge devices, I mean, people are certainly going to put it in their own embedded solutions, but for enthusiasts and people who like to do some edge stuff, it's not shabby. I have 3 cameras running on it concurrently, and it's not bad. You could do a real time. I had one up running. I just run a Python script. I can run it real time at about 30 frames a second, and that's not too shabby while I'm running other stuff. And I could have it write to a log file and then have NiFi just tail that off. So I could probably get, records every second or so. It would be cool if we were at a real conference, because then I would do what I've done at other conferences where I've had, camera running real time, doing real time detections and stuff. But here, there's not much to detect in my office, so it's pretty boring. It detects the back of my head in the chair. Not very cool. That's my main stuff.
So is anyone, I mean, should we just allow everyone to talk? Because
yeah, why not?
Like if they've been with us for a long time.
I don't think we get any more of the
no Zoom bombing
we had last time, yeah.
So if anyone wants to talk up, go ahead. Also, the other thing is if you guys are looking for something like a demo of something for future meetups, Paul, I know we have a meetup, what, October 8th?
15?
15th, something like that. One of those days. There's a day that exists that we have a meetup coming up.
I know I share that within my group too. So
yeah,
that's
the Philly
15th.
One. 15th. Yep.
On our day off.
Ah, look at you, man.
I know when I'm off, man.
There's no such thing as off for me anymore.
Well, I don't have to connect. I don't have to be on NiFi until 9 a.m. then.
So you see this bonus content from Nico?
Yeah.
So Nico's a friend. Nico is not a solutions engineer, and Nico is never been technical, right? Like in his previous life, and he built something. And so that just gives you an idea, like that's really neat for those people out there that are like, hey, can I do this? Can I get into technology? Nico's been busting his ass, trying real hard, and he actually built something,
Nice.
and it works, and it's pretty cool, right? So I'm pretty proud of him, right? It just shows that you don't necessarily have to come from comp sci or come from a tech background to be able to be a builder, right? And so that's pretty cool.
NiFi is definitely maker community, man.
Well, he's not just doing NiFi, man. He's using Kafka. He's using a bunch of different stuff.
Whoa.
So yeah. So
Kafka's tough.
Yeah, it's not,
It's not easy.
People that aren't used to the CLI, I mean, and he does a great job. And I'd say if you guys can come to this, and then tomorrow again, ApacheCon, you and Ian are 155, 150, some weird random time.
Oh yeah, it's Eastern time. I got 135, 215, and 255.
All right,
and
so
one is machine learning track, and the other two I think are IoT track.
Well, Paul's is kind of a mixture, right? So Paul's
This is
your
kind of
215.
cloud.
Yeah.
I don't remember where they put it actually.
I'm doing all the things.
All
That
the
might
things.
be in machine learning then.
Poorly.
I don't know. They don't know how to put a track. We should have put some blockchain in there now.
So that's the other thing. Like I allowed everyone to talk. If you want to mute yourself, you have questions about cloud. Paul is our cloud czar at CLOUDERA, right? He's the guy that we go to for cloud.
Yeah.
He's, you know, he's our go-to dude for cloud. So Tim and I are more streaming tech people, right?
He's cloud. I'm era.
And I'm .com.
I think you win there, man. .com is
I
best.
don't know. Yeah, not in the 90s I won, but sorry, SEC joke. All right, so that's pretty much it. That's all we have for today. We were kind of hoping we'd have you know, Andy Lepresto join, but he couldn't. Some things happened, and he's a PMC for NiFi. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone want to talk about anything? Is anyone listening really, or are they're just there on this?
Everyone's
you know?
sleeping, man.
Yeah.
Can I ask
think
a
so.
question?
Light FM.
Go ahead, Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
The Coral TPU board, I'm not familiar with it like at all. Could you talk about it? This is the first time I've heard of it. Maybe you could talk about what made you choose that versus competing solutions.
Yeah, I mean, it's running like once you compile the neural net to a TPU, it's like super more like it doesn't use. There's only one function that is not using the GPU, right? So it's all running on the GPU, so it's much faster. For neural net at the edge, it's kind of your best bet, right? Because of the prioritization. And you also have the Jetson, right? But that's kind of the idea is that you are running those models on the edge that are running in parallel. It's better to use a GPU. And the reason why I chose this TPU is because I had it at home, right? But it's the main reason is, you know, if you're going to run like the OpenCV stuff that I'm doing is going to so the ORB feature comparison, like I don't need a GPU for that. I can run on a simple CPU, and I can run on a Raspberry Pi. But for CNN, it's better to use a GPU. That's why I use the Coral Dev board. And they actually have a like what they call a TPU, which is like a TensorFlow optimized chip, which is like better to run all those TensorFlow models.
Is it inexpensive?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's a bit less than $100.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously if you buy it in bulk, it's much cheaper. You also have like Coral keys that you can add to your Raspberry Pi, so it's fairly cheap.
Yeah, the USB one I use, and I got the Coral sensor. That one's pretty cool. But if you're not doing TensorFlow, you don't want Coral.
Yeah, I mean, like you if you're not using TensorFlow exactly, you don't want to do that. It was, you know, the TensorFlow is kind of prevalent anyway for a lot of those stuff. So
yeah, there's the Movidius one is pretty good for OpenVINO, OpenCV, and there's actually going to be an official. It's on Kickstarter now. Of course, I ordered one. There's going to be an official OpenCV chip that looks pretty good. They just, when did that come out? I'll post the Kickstarter. That's
hopefully the
built-in
Kickstarter
graphics.
actually goes through.
Yeah, I know. That I don't know if I've lost more money on Kickstarter or in .com.
I would say Kickstarter.
I'm gonna have this.
Paul's leaving us in suspense again.
Oh, yeah. He said a bad word that the neural net took him out. Never threaten
There it is.
Skynet.
There you go. He took off his video feed.
Well, we do have a question now.
You can afford better internet, buddy. God, we have a question. Sorry. Any information on injection rate of Apache Kudu with respect to timescale DB or InfluxDB? So, okay, Kudu, in my opinion, you're comparing time series databases to Kudu. Kudu is not really a time series database, although it can dual purpose for that. If you really wanted a time series database, I would probably look towards Apache Druid.
Oh, Druid. I forgot we had Druid too. Oh,
yeah.
Geez.
Yeah, so Kudu is fast. I mean, really, really, really fast. So the injection rate.
SQL.
Yeah. And there you can do Impala SQL on top of it. InfluxDB, timescale DB, I think are still JSON SQL, right? They're not.
And they're
it's like the Druid.
Apache, right?
No, Influx is its own. Influx is proprietary.
MIT. They're MIT.
Yeah, they're MIT. Well, Influx is used a lot or is looked at a lot in, I guess, like financial markets sometimes, right? Like Influx. I would say you're comparing different databases. Kudu is definitely not. It's not a time series database, although it can act as dual purpose. But if you really wanted a cross comparison, do Druid, timescale, and Influx. That's a better. Does that help, Ravi? Ravi, you can talk, by the way, and unmute yourself if you want. Okay. No one likes to speak.
That was the best when we used to have them in person. One time we had some people from a competitor, and they were in the back just like, oh, that's not going to work. And I'm like, okay, come up and show your thing. And then they were quiet. Yeah, I don't know. It depends on your use case, though. I mean, we're using Kudu and HBase and Druid because that is what we have. I mean, I have seen people use those other databases for very specific time series or for log stuff.
So I tested, and so I pinned I pinned not Kudu but Influx and Druid against each other. So for those that don't know my background, I came from a water utility. And I know you're like, water utility, why the hell would you guys use like cutting edge technology? But we actually were ingesting sensor data from our raw water intake facilities. So, you know, for those that don't know, you get your water from either the ground or from the surface. And about 80% of the water that you get is usually from the surface. It's not from a well. And so as you take water in from the surface, it goes to what's called a raw water intake. That usually sits closer to the surface, and then it pushes the water upstream to a freshwater impoundment, which will sit and wait. And then you have your water treatment facility, right? So I know a lot of people were like, oh, I really wanted to learn about water today and how water is treated. But the thing is that the company I worked for, a chemical spill occurred upstream, and they weren't able to figure out that the chemical spill occurred on the raw water intake and essentially pulled all the water in. And by doing so, basically poisoned the well, right? So the freshwater impoundment is there because the government says, since you're pulling from a stream or a river or some sort of, freshwater that exists for everyone, you essentially need to, limit how much you can pull in, when you can pull it in, and all that stuff. So the time series database was very important for us because as we were pulling in, I was pulling in the data real time using NiFi from the raw water intake sensors to try to match essentially different sensor readings to, could there be a chemical composition that we're not sure of that existed in the water before we pushed it upstream into the freshwater impoundment. When I compared Influx and Druid, I felt like Druid did a better job. So we ended up going with Druid, and we're not financial. So financial data, milliseconds make a difference. So in things like that, like you'll what is it? KDB is huge in the financial industry because of that. So it depends on your industry, but for us, Druid had a lot more flexibility. and I felt like it worked a lot better than InfluxDB did. Timescale DB, yeah, as you said, it's built over Postgres, right? So, but you know, Druid's built over, you know, it's everything's a data store, but there's an underlying data store for a data store, right? That's the way even Kudu kind of works like that, right? It's so, you know, there you go.
We just
Tim
know
posted.
yeah.
You could have used crank up the amps.
Yeah, we know a guy at Imply now, so he showed up to our ApacheCon meetup, Abdelkrim. So, but yeah, Druid's a pretty good database, I think, for time series. And the cool thing about Druid comparative to others is the interaction with other techs, right? So Druid and Hive really marry well together.
Kafka.
Yeah, Kafka right out of the gate. And that's what we did. We basically streamed into NiFi, pushed it to Kafka into Druid, right? And then we put like superset dashboards on top of it. But even now, like, you know, Druid can be used as OLAP cubes. So you have multi-purpose, not just a time series database, but something that can build an OLAP cube for, like, you know, say a materialized view on a Hive table.
Yeah, and there's some cool stuff coming with Druid.
Yeah. And we like Druid.
Yeah, we've got a new thing coming out this year with Druid, visual apps, real-time streaming, Kafka, and Flink SQL. That looks pretty cool. I think that's kind of the difference. Some of the one-off solutions have really good niches. Like InfluxDB, I think, was really good with Grafana or one of those to do, like, I got some basic logs coming in. I want to store them somewhere and show them, and it's not part of any other solution. I don't want to pay anybody. It's not part of an enterprise. It's just log one system somewhere. It's great. But when you go, well, I also need lineage. I need an ingest tool. I need a full query engine. I need data science. It's sort of all these projects that are secured together, use the same lineage, monitoring, management, single sign-on, all from one environment, runs on-premise or in any of the clouds. I mean, that's why we mentioned Kudu, we mentioned Druid, we mentioned HBase, because we have them all integrated together. They have that single security, and we've been doing this for a decade. And people have been asking for all these kind of things over those years, companies that are Fortune, you know, 3, 4, 5, 10. And these things have been proven at enormous scale. That's sort of where we play is, yeah, what if I wanted to put the largest company in the world, wanted to use this as their time series database? Okay, that's what we do. You know, it's not, okay, here's a line of business, put in one server somewhere or 100 servers. You know, what happens when you hit 500,000 servers and you're doing 1 trillion events a second? Where do you put them? That's sort of the things we look at, and how do you know, what do you do when you got to do more than that? And then you got to share it with another app, and other people want that data. You get unique things we have to handle here that some of the newer projects haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I think whenever you're choosing a technology, there's always a couple things, right? So, yeah, you want to pick best of breed if you can, but if best of breed takes a shit ton of integration work to get it to work with other things, is it worth it, right? So you might have something that might not be best of breed in comparison to the thing that you choose, but the fall off is relatively small. That now I have something that might be slightly inferior, and I really mean slightly, but it integrates with all this other stuff so well that it makes your job, life, and everyone's life a hell of a lot easier in the long run. And I think that's something to consider when you're choosing techs, right?
Yeah, I mean, the platform aspect and the integration aspect is important because, I mean, it also depends, because you need to think of scale, right? And it's not the scale of the data, it's the scale of your organization. And how much because yeah, you can build I have many of my customers that build this like science project of like, I'm going to use all these different projects and make up something very cool. And they do. They have a team that builds this whole thing end to end. But unless you're Netflix and you're literally just engineers, you will not be able to maintain it further. And this is where, you know, companies like CLOUDERA are helping, because, you know, this integration point shouldn't be what you want to manage. You want to manage a business. Like, we have people currently, as we speak, talking to people that are working on COVID vaccine and etc. They didn't spend the time to build an end-to-end platform to do their testing because they have more important things to do, and they're leveraging our platform to do it, right? That's kind of where it is, right? Not every company has 10,000 top engineers to work on on their data platform, right?
Well, and when they do, they develop a new project that
Exactly.
they may use or may abandon and then do another one. And then you're like, oh, I got a small company, I'm going to use that project. And you find out that LinkedIn or one of these other guys abandoned it and already went on to the next thing. You know,
That's right.
there's a lot of those projects that look really awesome. I'm like, oh, this looks like a good project. When was it last updated? Oh, who's working on it? Only one
3 years
company.
ago.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I've seen.
Because I
forget what
found a couple new Netflix ones and I'm like, last updated last year.
was it like Dremio or Drill? One of them was like,
Oh,
They're
Drill was MapR.
okay, yeah, Drill was MapR. So because of that, there was literally like an email that was sent like, hey, you're one of 3 people that are still possible committers for this code. Are you interested in keeping it forward? It's like, oh,
Well, fortunately, the best part of Drill was saved, though. That's Calcite.
oh yeah, Calcite's awesome.
So that's separate, and Calcite's awesome.
Calcite's embedded in pretty much, I feel like, most
Everything now.
tools.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Anything that uses SQL uses Calcite in the Apache projects.
And that's unfortunately one guy or two. There's one person does Avatica, one person does Calcite. So please join open source. There's less people supporting the entire world than you want to know.
Yeah.
Like Redis is 3 people. HBase is a lot of people. NiFi has a lot of people.
You need at least 3. You need at least 3 for it to maintain, right? 3 or 4, something like that. I forget what there's actually a number where they say if the project has to sustain, you need at least this many in order for it to maintain as a project.
Yeah. But I mean, that's evolution. Sometimes they go away like Flume, Pig. You know, there's projects that people have Storm.
Yeah.
MapReduce.
I was not a fan of Storm, I'll tell you that much.
As a
user,
idea. Yeah.
That's a great idea. Flink did it much better, but
well, it's easier to do it afterwards, and you see, oh, don't do that.
Yeah. No, I get it. We use Storm. We use Storm a little, you know, for some of the aggregate.
I remember that's partially my fault, and I'm sorry. No one knew. There was a whole bunch of people. Then all of a sudden, several of the big internet companies said, let's do another project instead, because they got bored. When you get 1,000 developers, you get bored and write a new thing.
Yeah, so if for those out there, man, support open source. Go build open source. The more you do open source, the better. You can get in niches and projects. It's pretty neat.
They're always looking for people, even if you're just doing documentation or testing or submitting bug reports. That's huge.
What is that? Let me see if this shows up on the camera.
Oh, the coin.
There you go.
I'm missing my elephants, man. I'm missing my elephant. Missing my elephant. I gave him a tie now, so he's my official business user.
There you go.
Okay, so since we're giving status reports, I got a question for Tim.
Go ahead, Bill.
Okay.
Apache Goblin, supposed to be like a command line interface for NiFi. No, everybody's shaking their head. No,
No, Goblin was a Kafka tool, or Gremlin. No, Goblin is for which graph database?
NiFi.
Yeah, Goblin's an ingest. No, it's not for NiFi.
Oh, it's not for NiFi.
It's for Kafka.
No, Goblin was considered its own
a
project,
part-
but yeah, it's supposed to be. It's Apache Goblin, and it was supposed to be like in the same vein as. It's not really NiFi, but it was supposed to be in the same vein as that. It didn't do a very good job.
Well, it just got abandoned, but
Yeah.
it did a lot. I think that was another of those big internet company tried a project and then gave up on it. Yeah, the last update on the site is 2017.
Agree.
All right. Beginning.
So, but yeah, it's Apache Goblin was considered a competitor of NiFi, but it hasn't been around in a while, or hasn't really done much with it in a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great logo though.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It looks like Pac-Man.
Yeah, I like that.
I remember the logo, man. It looks like Pac-Man, but it's supposed to be like an ETL tool, a data ingest tool. So I would say, Flume was all scripted in that way, but when you put them all together, like Flume, Goblin, NiFi, were all in that same category, but it wasn't an integration with NiFi.
Yeah, the only tools that work with NiFi are the NiFi REST API and the NiFi toolkit, which has a really good command line. There's some cool stuff in there. I've been able to pull in parameters. That's my new fun thing, John. Pull a parameter out of local and push it to another server.
Hey, that's not a bad idea, right? I mean, I wish I wasn't a procrastinator and I had a little more time when I built my demo, because I didn't use parameters at all.
I know.
I was like, I'll build this real quick. And, you spend like a couple of hours just setting up the Oracle database and everything. And I'm like, maybe I should have started this yesterday. But they delete everything come Sunday. So I'm like, I got to wait anyway.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to run Oracle out of Docker. They have a Dockerized version, but it's very, it's junk.
It's very easy to do in AWS. You just set up the RDS. The big thing is set your cluster up first, and then whatever the VPC is of that cluster, you can use that for your Oracle database, which means that everything's smooth sailing past that. But the problem is that if you don't realize that when you start up your Oracle database, like I did, then you run into issues, and then you have to start from scratch and redo it. You'll see in the instructions, they're literally going to be step by step.
We're very eager to see that article. I think that's going to be very cool.
Yeah, it'll be nice, and then we'll build off of it too.
Yeah, you should make that a SME streaming session or something.
Yeah, something. We'll see.
Something. Or just show the ApacheCon video,
It's funny. It's the ugliest thing ever, and no one really cares except every company in the world. Every company I've ever dealt with is like, how do I make this do CDC out of Oracle? You're like, okay, let me show you.
Yeah, here it's $1 million. And they're like, ooh.
Yeah. If you want real CDC, it's going to cost you, 6 figures. If you want quasi CDC, I could do it for you for a lot cheaper.
For $11.
Yeah, about $3.50.
Three Wawa beverages and a sandwich. I guess we're good. I'm gonna end the YouTube stream if we don't have any more questions. I'm wondering where Bill found that one though. I'm very curious if that popped up in some CLOUDERA community somewhere, or he's cleaning out a closet at the old headquarters.
What, Goblin or
Gremlin or any of those wacky projects?
Yeah, Gremlin was Kafka. That was LinkedIn Kafka. Goblin was its own.
There's so many weird projects, man.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track after a while.
Yeah, there's too many. Oh well.
Actually,
okay, guys. No more questions. We'll end this stream. Hope to see you at ApacheCon tomorrow. Hope to see you at is it next month or is it October? No, not October yet.
October. No, it's October in like 4
Soon.
hours and 5 minutes.
Yeah, so October 15th is your meetup in virtual Philly. So you won't get mugged because it's virtual. And
Oh,
you'll
come on,
have,
man. Philly ain't that bad.
Don't be decent like this. What are you doing?
Whoa, boy.
Calm down.
Slow your
I
roll.
don't know. It took me about 7 hours. It took me 7 hours to park for the 2-hour meetup.
No. So that I agree with 100%. You could have bucked us on parking, but mugging. Come on, man. You could have been like, look, you don't. You could show up like 5 minutes before because you don't have to, try to find a parking spot. That's legitimate. Or get a parking ticket for $25 because that's also legitimate.
Oh, yeah, but more than $25, man.
No, I think it was 25. The time Paul,
Yeah.
me, and Craig went to Standard Tap, I think it was $25 it cost me.
That's not too bad.
And parking tickets.
You can't beat those Philly shopping cart pretzels.
Yeah, you don't do that anymore, man. Don't.
No,
Yeah,
that's not safe. That's not safe. Don't eat a hot pretzel that's cooking inside of a dirty shopping cart, but it tastes good.
It's not even that. It's a matter of where that guy goes to the bathroom is typically on the side of the road.
In that
and
shopping cart, yeah.
His sink doesn't exist. So go to Philly Soft Pretzel Factory because now you can go